Hi, everybody, and welcome to Kunzang Pile Drilling. We're really glad to have you here with us tonight. And we have a teaching from Jetsunma Ahkon Lhamo. This one was given in 1996. It was a long teaching, so it's been split in two parts. Part one will be tonight, and part two will be next Wednesday night. So come back at the same time, same channel for part two. And if you missed them, they will be up on YouTube as well. So please enjoy. The title of this one is Awaken from Non-Recognition. And so we begin.
What we're trying to do now is to utilize a format that I very frequently use, which is to kind of build an inroad into a concept by sort of circling the mountain and then climbing it from many different angles. My feeling is that if we take simply one tactic to describe the Guru Yoga or anything that is ultimately a very abstract and profound concept, that somehow we won't get it all. It's very difficult, particularly in this culture, which is not acclimated to the practice or understanding of Guru Yoga, to make such a transition. It's much easier instead for us to translate one religious context that we know and understand into another religious context and think because we've translated certain terminologies and certain words that we've actually understood. And that may not be the case. So instead, a good thing to do, and something that I found very useful, is to explain a concept again from 360 different degrees or all the way around the mountain if you can, and then also use and apply concepts that are relevant and familiar to our lives. So in this way, we can begin to prepare our minds by sort of loosening up former tight concepts. We can begin by recognizing certain elements within the teaching that apply to our life. We can begin to simply back off from what we have taken to be absolutely true and therefore what has become invisible and reassess. And that will provide something like a softening or a receptiveness to our mind, to our consciousness, that later when we enter into the retreat will be beneficial. And even for those of us who will not attend the retreat, and I can't imagine there's any of you here that would think that way, even those of us that may not attend the retreat, still these teachings will be useful and will help to prepare us for a time in the future when we can understand the same teachings. So now we are continuing to prepare ourselves for the Guru Yoga. And in order to do that, we might want to look at where we are right now. According to the Buddhist teachings and according to everything that we can surmise from the information we receive as we travel along the path, we are now as sentient beings in a state of non-recognition. That non-recognition, it's interesting because when you hear a term like that, it's hard to really understand what it means. When we think of the word recognizing, we think in more superficial terms, I recognize you, you recognize me. We recognize people that we are familiar with. So that concept still holds true, but there needs to be maybe a more deeper, more able way to understand what non-recognition actually means according to the Buddhist philosophy. According to Buddhist philosophy, we contain within us the seed that is Buddha nature. It is not smaller than the Buddha's nature. It is not bigger than the Buddha's nature. It is not different than the Buddha's nature. It is the same. It is that nature inherent within us that is the primordial wisdom state, or the natural ground of being. That is our nature. As we move toward enlightenment, we don't construct that nature. It doesn't become complete. It doesn't become bigger. It simply is what it is, but we move from a state of non-recognition into a state that the Buddha clearly described as being awake. And that's the only difference. We tend to think in a materialistic way, even about those things that are very subtle, very pure, very profound, and very spiritual. We tend to think perhaps that the Buddha or a great bodhisattva or even one's teacher has a bigger Buddha nature than we do. Somehow it's bigger and maybe more muscle-bound or stronger, or something like that. Maybe it's worked out and it's fit. We don't have any real idea, but something like that. We tend to think that maybe in a materialistic society, we measure things. So at the risk of being crude, we wonder if the teacher's isn't bigger than ours. And that being the case, I said it was a risk. But according to the Buddha's teaching, that is not the case.
I am really sorry. I had totally forgotten that this is the last teaching of the POA. I got my days mixed up. So let me turn around and finish the last teaching of the POA, which I think a lot of people were expecting. And then we will have this teaching on Sunday as our Sunday 1 and 2, okay? Hoping I'm not panicking any of you, but this will be reshown. No problem. I'll be right back to you.